Only in Kentucky can a blind and deaf inventor create a talking glove to communicate, and a local carpenter infiltrate a secret society to save the Union. Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm learning a little bit more about Kentucky, one county at a time, all 120 of them. And today I'm talking about Spencer County. Spencer County sits in the outer bluegrass region, defined by rolling limestone hills. Spencer County's ancient history is mostly a ghost in the archives. We know indigenous people lived and hunted here. Federal records show that 16 Native American remains were recovered from the county and placed in museum collections. By the time European settlers arrived, the Salt River Valley was a highly contested area. Frontier records note a native ambush on a riverboat in 1778 and a deadly raid on a pioneer family at Simpson Creek in 1782. Those early settlers were largely land-hungry veterans pushing into the frontier. A Revolutionary War veteran named Richard Taylor, who also happened to be the father of future President Zachary Taylor, built a gristmill at the mouth of Brashears Creek. In 1799, he donated 60 acres of his own land to officially establish the town of Taylorsville. As the population grew, the state legislature carved Spencer County out of neighboring Shelby, Bullitt, and Nelson counties in 1824. They named the new territory after Captain Spear Spencer. Spencer was a dedicated Kentucky-born militia officer who died leading his men, known as the Yellow Jackets, at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811. Military records report that Spencer was shot in the head, then shot through both thighs, but kept dragging himself up to shout encouragement to his men until a final bullet took his life. The early pioneers who settled the county were an inventive group. Take Jacob Yoder, for example. Back in 1782, Yoder invented the very first American flatboat, launching a massive, lucrative agricultural trade route down the Ohio and Mississippi rivers. He moved to Spencer County in 1804 and used his wealth to build a sturdy stone farmhouse called Beechland that still stands near Taylorsville today. But the county's most fascinating native son might be Morrison Heady. Born on a farm near Elk Creek in 1829, Heady was blinded in one eye by a flying wood chip when he was just 6 years old. And at 16, a kick to the face during a game robbed him of his remaining sight. A few years later, he fell off a horse, suffered a traumatic brain injury, and went completely deaf. Instead of surrendering to total isolation, Heady became a force of nature because, dubbed the Blind Bard of Kentucky, he became a celebrated poet and a pioneer for accessibility. He invented the diplograph, a machine that punctured paper so he could feel and edit his own writing. He traveled the country raising money to print raised letter books, helping establish the American Printing House for the Blind here in Louisville. And to communicate with the outside world, he invented this talking glove. He printed the alphabet across different sections of a cotton glove, memorized the positions, and let neighborhood children literally type messages into the palm of his hand. While Heady was fighting to expand education, the rest of the county was preparing for the Civil War. Felix Grungy Steiger, a young man raised in a log cabin in Taylorsville, joined the Union Army and was quickly recruited for a highly dangerous espionage mission. Posing as a disgruntled Southern sympathizer, he infiltrated the Knights of the Golden Circle, which was a pro-Confederate secret society. He was so convincing that he became the group leader's right-hand man, uncovering a plot to firebomb northern cities and free thousands of Confederate prisoners on July 4th, 1864. His undercover work and subsequent testimony sent the leadership to prison and foiled the uprising, though he spent the rest of his life dodging assassins. Back home, the war burned right through the center of town. In January of 1865, Confederate guerrillas led by Bloody Bill Anderson rode into Taylorsville and burned the Spencer County Courthouse to the ground. Fortunately, locals managed to negotiate a brief delay and drag the county's records out of the vault before the roof collapsed. A few months later, the infamous Kansas guerrilla leader William Cantrell was fleeing federal troops through Kentucky. Union cavalry finally cornered his raiding party at Wakefield Farm in Spencer County. Cantrell was shot in the spine during the ambush and died in a Louisville military hospital shortly after, closing one of the final chapters of the Civil War. After the war, the county had to rebuild its society, and the county's formerly enslaved residents began building their own self-sustaining rural hamlets in society. One of the most prominent was the Camp Branch community just northwest of Taylorsville, which grew into a tight-knit neighborhood with its own church and cemetery. In town, a woman named Sue Perry Shelburne became a pillar of the community. Born in 1883, she was the daughter of custodians for the local white schools and churches. Sue went on to spend 42 years walking 4 miles every day to teach at the segregated Culpeper School. Her family's 2-story house still stands right across from Taylorsville City Hall. In the decades that followed, Spencer County's economy was dictated by what it lacked. While other Kentucky counties boomed with heavy industry and coal, Spencer County never even got a single railroad track. The steep ravines of the Salt River made laying steel too expensive. As a result, the county remained intensely rural and almost entirely agricultural, relying on the river and dirt turnpikes to move hemp, tobacco, and livestock to the markets in the Louisville metro area. Because the county was so isolated, tiny self-sustaining communities popped up at rural intersections to serve the local farmers, and one of those communities got its name by pure accident. In August of 1900, a general store owner named George W. Sloan was filling out a federal application to open up a post office along Brashears Creek. The government required him to submit a second choice name just in case his first pick was already taken by another town in the state. Well, while he's doing these applications, Sloan looked up at the inventory on his own store shelves, and his eyes landed on a box of shotgun shells manufactured under the brand name New Rival. He scribbled it down on the form. Sure enough, his first choice was rejected by Washington, and so the federal government approved of the backup, and then you get the community officially named Rivals, in honor of a box of 19th century shotgun ammunition. You would not expect a landlocked farming community in Kentucky to have a deep connection to Hawaiian music, but Spencer County claims Cliff Carlisle. Born in Taylorsville in 1904, Carlisle was a pioneer of early country and blues music. He was one of the very first musicians to introduce the Hawaiian steel guitar into American country music, heavily influencing the genre today. He yodeled, played the steel guitar, and toured extensively through the 1920s and 30s. Today, that rural agricultural footprint has completely transformed. Like many Kentucky communities, the historic tobacco industry experienced a total collapse. Local farmers survived by pivoting hard into forage, transforming the county into one of the state's top producers of hay, soybeans, and beef cattle. But the most drastic physical change to the county happened in 1983. To control the catastrophic seasonal flooding of the Salt River, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers built a massive 162-foot dam. The project intentionally flooded 1,200 acres of farmland and forced the relocation of local roads and cemeteries, creating the 3,000-acre Taylorsville Lake as we know it today. The validation of that sacrifice came in March of 1997. Kentucky was hit with a catastrophic rainstorm that caused historic, devastating flooding across the whole state, and the Salt River swelled to terrifying levels. Hydrologists later confirmed that if the Taylorsville Lake Dam had not been built, the entire downtown of Taylorsville would have been completely submerged and likely wiped off the map. Today, the lake and the surrounding state parks serve as an economic engine, pulling in hundreds of thousands of boaters, campers, and tourists every year. And that recreational draw, combined with the county's proximity to Louisville, has sparked a massive suburban boom. Residents can now commute to jobs in the Louisville metro area, returning home to their lakeside subdivisions and quiet farms. Today, the population of Spencer County is roughly 21,000. Locals still gather for the Spencer County Fair every July, share potluck dishes at the Community Food Fest in September, and celebrate their heritage at Taylorsville Oktoberfest. So, that's Spencer County. What'd I get wrong this time?